share a kind of lesson that I learned from Jane Jacobs. Everyone has probably a Jane Jacobs story, but I was in grade 11 urban geography, and I was given Bloor West Village as my topic. I went dutifully to the Toronto City Hall Planning Department, and the planner that I met actually gave me Jane Jacobs' phone number. And so then I dutifully called Jane Jacobs. I actually didn't quite know who she was and how important she was. And I explained my grade 11 geography project, and I was asked to do the kind of Bloor West Village, and I told her what streets it started and what streets it ended. And she said in her kind of slightly crusty voice, well, that's a good project, but I would rather you do one block than several blocks. And I actually want you to know that one block that you pick really well. And I want you to observe it, to understand it, and I'd rather you be an expert on one block than actually to know a whole lot about, not a lot, about a larger portion of the city. Many years later, I was at a lecture that she gave at the King Edward Hotel, and it was actually called Women's Work. And she described men's work, and she listed war and construction and all the things that she described that fit the definition of men's work. And she actually described women's work. And that after that, she said that women's work was really making a better place for their children, for their family, that that was the primary goal. And then she started to use a series of examples of a certain Italian neighborhood in Rochester where women took in boarders when their men went out to work in other places. This became the most popular Italian neighborhood in the city for restaurants. But it started with women's work that actually became a kind of better city. She used the example of maiden-form underwear, which were two sisters that made brassieres in their home. It became so successful that their husbands had to help them with the business, and it became a much larger entity, but it started off as women's work. And so in a way, you know, when you think about what Jane Jacobs talks about, she said she would rather look at a lively pedestrian street and observe what makes it work, and deduct from what makes it work what sort of things we should be doing and encouraging, as opposed to maybe starting from a Daniel Burnham, you know, make no small plans, we only make big cities perspective. So I actually think that for me, scale is related to a kind of position about how you see a city. And understanding the layers of complexity and being able to dissect them, maybe not having, so you're always aware of the big picture, but you also have to be aware of the micro scale at the same time. And this kind of dual reading of scale for me is actually how all of us, not just architects or planners, but citizens actually make a better city. It's those micro observations of, you know, a ramp that doesn't fit my stroller or a wheelchair that can't get up here or there, this question of inclusion, exclusion. Really, we have to be advocates at the micro scale, and we also have to be champions at the citywide scale. And it's not a judgment, value judgment about one is good and the other is bad, but the only way we make a better city that is actually an open city for everyone is actually to be working at multiple scales simultaneously, to push and really enforce the kinds of changes that make it a humane place that we all want to be in. Density is often seen as a bad, dirty word. It's always sort of vilified. But I would say density and humane spaces actually go hand in hand. We actually need, it's better for us not to eat up suburban farmland, to actually live in smaller spaces. Maybe we need to get used to smaller spaces as opposed to big spaces for domestic world, and that we put more emphasis on public spaces that are collective. So I feel like there are many ways of thinking about scale that can really help not just a feminist city, but I would say an open city for everyone.